Never in my wildest dreams did I conjure anything as incredible as Larry Scott, blurted Rick Wayne in a subtitle to an article describing the great Scott's second Mr. Olympia victory. As an eyewitness to the event, I can say that Ricky's attitude reflected practically everyone in attendance, mine included. It has always been difficult for me to understand how a man that was loved so intensely by the people at the Bilkin Academy of Music that night could have remained such an unknown to the world at large. It is likely that never before in the history of the human race, and maybe never again, had more than 2,000 people assembled in one place expressed so much collective emotion for one man. As Larry made his now famous slow tease entrance on stage, the hootin' and hollerin' reached such a crescendo, I could actually feel the vibrations. I've attended just about every major bodybuilding event since then, witnessing all the greats in competition, including Oliva, Schwarzenegger, Poole, Coe, Zane, Columbo, Draper, and Corny. And I'll tell you not one has come close to the impact the lone Larry Scott made as he stalked center stage in 1966. The identification of the fans with Scott was almost mystical. Bodybuilding's most incisive commentators have endeavored ever since to explain the Scott phenomenon, with no one ever hitting it on the head. Other champions like Reeves or Schwarzenegger may be known to more people, but none were as adored by the aficionados as intensely as Scott. Some say it was his wholesome all-American look. Others say that it was the times, that people badly needed a hero when the anti-hero was being held up as an ideal. I'm sure that these and other explanations all aid in explaining the impact of Larry Scott. But whatever is said, if Larry hadn't possessed those near-perfect huge arms, he may have ended up no more than a footnote in the annals of the sport. Scott's arms were so big that night of his second Olympia victory that if he had walked on stage on his hands, probably no one would have noticed the difference. His arm appeared as large as legs. These were but a few of the thoughts that passed through my mind as I waited to interview Larry while he went through the paces at a photo session recently. As Larry fired a salvo of mind-boggling poses for John Balick's camera, I couldn't help but notice that at 45, the great Scott didn't have the arms he used to. No, as a matter of fact, they are better today than they were when he was in his prime and winning contests. Not only are his arms as big and cut as ever, but now for the first time, his biceps had peaks, real juters. And it was on this subject that I launched our interview, anxious to discover what tricks an old dog could have learned after all these years. Larry, both John Balick and I noted how much more peaked your biceps appear than in the past, I said. What have you done to bring them out like that? Well, to tell the truth, I haven't done anything special as far as actual training is concerned. As a matter of fact, my current routine for arms is essentially the same one I used at the time of my Olympia victories. By using the Weider isotension principle, I've gained more conscious control over all my muscles, including my biceps. Now when I pose, instead of just throwing my arms up in the air, I make a much deeper mental connection with my muscles, which help brings out peaks and cuts in greater relief. Then we talked about the evolution of physique standards over the years and how the mind-body connection seems to have been an integral part of that evolution. Scott remarked that he's always been able to achieve a much stronger link between his mind and his arms than with most other body parts, which perhaps accounted for his arms being his best body part. But as important as that mind-body link is, there is another factor he believes responsible for his success in the arm department. As I just mentioned, Mike, my current routine is the same as it was years ago. I still use the preacher bench as the focus of arm training. I've tried lots of different ways to train arms, but nothing beats the preacher bench if it's designed properly. Hoping to gain information that might help my own arm training, I pressed Larry for specifics. What is a properly designed preacher bench? Well, to begin with, Mike, it must have a convex shape to the front of it, and also the post it sits on has to be offset to the front so that when you start really using heavy weight, you can throw your hips into the movement without hitting the post. The sponge you put on the bench must be of very high density so it protects your elbows. And for the developing peak, we use a bench that has almost a 90-degree angle for the lower biceps. My primary reason for using the preacher bench, we employ a 45-degree angle. The face of the bench also has to be shallow enough so that when you go over, the dumbbells don't hit the bottom. It's the biceps that should be stopping the motion. We've tried many types of benches, none of which suited us, so finally we made our own, patterned after one I used to train on at Vince Gironda's. While Scott reiterated at this point that he had not done anything specific in his training to improve his bicep peaks, he added that occasionally he would do spider curls, which are preacher curls on a perpendicular. He was not doing these presently, however, and continued with a description of his arm training routine. Dave, my training partner, and I warm up the biceps with a few light sets first, and then launch into very heavy dumbbell preacher curls using 100-pound dumbbells. We'll do 6 repetitions with 4 burns or partial reps included. We use a loose style where we go all the way down and cheat it back up again. From there, we'll go directly into barbell preacher curls using only 120 pounds, but performed very strictly this time. We'll finish with reverse curls using an easy curl bar, having moved through all 3 exercises at a real quick pace. For those who think the much-touted pain barrier is the product of some muscle writer's hyperactive imagination, Larry waxed enthusiastic about the exquisite agony of the routine. Doing those 3 exercises in the Weider tricep fashion, with no rest between them, has got to be the greatest pain we get from our training. It's agony. Boy, do I love it. Surprisingly enough, Larry trains as heavy now as he did when he was younger, handling considerable poundages in all exercises. This is contrary to the practice of many bodybuilders today who believe that attaining extreme definition and the use of heavy weights are incompatible. Larry's arms, as thick, full, shapely, and cut as you could imagine, are proof that their belief is nonsense. Larry continues his arm training with the supine tricep press using an easy curl bar. He goes particularly heavy on this one, using between 250 and 300 pounds in fairly strict form. Following the supine tricep press, Larry and Dave perform tricep extensions on the long pole tricep machine, going as high as 170 pounds. Larry points out that much of his success with these arm exercises is due to the very particular manner in which he performs them. He has this to say, for instance, about the tricep extension on the long pole tricep machine. This exercise has to be performed in a certain way. If you get it just right, it's great. But if it's off only a little, then it's not nearly so good. If the pulley is too high, like around 5.5 feet in the air, it's too high and hurts your back, and you have to flex abs to stay down on the bench. Then if the chain is too low, it tears your hair off. You need a twin pedestal bench so your elbows are up and your head is down in between the pedestals. We go back and forth between these first 2 in a superset fashion, doing 6 reps with 4 burns for each. We go back and forth for about 4 supersets, but at a slow pace. Larry finishes off his triceps in an unusual manner, using a long pole tricep machine. He'll do a set of extensions with perhaps 150 pounds, then walk around the room briskly, come back, and immediately do another set. He'll do that for 2 series, then he'll cut his walking distance between the series to about 10 feet. Then he'll finish by walking just enough between series so he can catch his breath. This is a really great way to finish off the triceps, Larry said. Dave and I set up the 2 machines so we aren't bumping into each other. We each go at our own individual pace. Scott concludes his arm training with forearm starting off with a heavy wrist curl and a light wrist curl. He and Dave do 2 supersets of 20 reps each, alternating the 2 exercises, with Larry doing his 2 sets of the series first, followed by Dave. From there, they go to the curling machine with a reverse grip for the brachialis and use as much as 250 pounds for 7 or 8 reps. After 3 or 4 sets of reverse curls on the machine, Larry and Dave will conclude their forearm work with another couple of series of the heavy and light wrist curls they started out with. Occasionally, they'll add a reverse wrist curl on the reverse side of the preacher bench for the outside of the forearm although Larry feels its value is limited because the thumb usually gives out early in the game. Larry Scott's arm routine: biceps, preacher curl with dumbbells, 4 to 6 sets of 6 reps with 4 burns. 2. Barbell preacher curl, 4 to 6 sets of 6 reps with 4 burns. 3. Reverse curl on preacher bench with easy bar, same as above. Triceps: 1. Supine tricep press with easy bar curl, 4 to 6 sets with 6 reps and 4 burns, supersetted with 2. Long pull tricep extension, 4 to 6 sets with 6 reps and 4 burns. 3. Long pull tricep extension done by itself, same as above. Forearms: 1. Heavy wrist curl, 2 supersets of 2 light wrist curls, 20 reps each. 3. Reverse curl on machine, 3 to 4 sets of about 8 reps. 4. Heavy and light wrist curl performed as above. After Larry and Dave left, John Balick and I discussed Scott and his influence on the sport. Let's face it, bodybuilders everywhere still judge arms using Scott's as the standard. John and I couldn't think of any recent bodybuilders whose total arm development, bicep, triceps, forearms, could rival that of Larry at the age of 45. Check out the photos accompanying this article closely, and I think you'll agree. It will be interesting to see if the same holds true 5 years from now when the great Scott is 50. In case you're interested, check back with Muscle and Fitness in 1987, as Larry promised us he'd pose for another article at that time.